What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Silver Screen Shenanigans podcast. My name is Devin, and the question of the day is: if you had like super like god powers, basically from Norse mythology, would you act more like Loki or would you act more like Thor? For me, I think any human in general, if they get like god powers, they're gonna act like Loki for a little bit. But after a while, I think I would really want to try to act like Thor, even though it's not like what you would want to do. It's like what you should do type of thing.
Yeah, I think that once you get the power, it's going to go to your head and you'll definitely be like Loki. And it's going to be difficult, in my opinion, to be difficult to switch to being righteous like Thor.
Because why not do whatever you want to do?
Right. I'm Riley, and I think I'd be like Loki the entire time. I feel it in my bones. I feel like if I had the power, that's what I would be.
But it seems like he's having a lot of fun.
It really does. Like, he could do whatever he feels like.
We'll see the consequences of that, though.
Yeah.
But today we're going to be talking about the sequel to Thor, Thor: The Dark World. And speaking of Loki, we start out this movie with his like trial or judgment, I guess, by Odin.
Yeah, after the New York incident.
He's brought back to... So the Tesseract and Loki are brought back to Asgard. And Loki is basically, went this talk with Odin. He's just totally remorseless. He does not care like what he did. He's just like, I was just trying to rule like you, Dad, basically. And I was like, and Odin's like, is like that, basically the thing is like, that's not what a king does. He doesn't seek people to like rule. He rules
People trust him enough.
Yeah.
To put their lives in his hands.
He doesn't you don't seek people to rule. And we also find out that we finally get introduced, like a real introduction to like Frigga, I think is her name. Odin says she's the only reason that Loki's even alive right now. And Frigga is Loki and Thor's mom, Odin's wife. And we later find out, like, she's a witch. She has pretty cool powers, which makes sense that where Loki got his powers from.
I mean, yes, yeah, yes and no.
She probably
taught him.
Taught him, yeah.
But not
like from birth, no. And like it's tough deal because like he just goes straight to prison for the rest of his life. At least that's the plan anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of deserved.
Oh yeah,
for destroying
Killed
half of New York.
At least probably millions of people in New York.
Yeah. Well, also before this movie on Disney Plus, they have the short film shows.
Oh, true.
And it's called Item 47. So after the Battle of New York, 47 alien tech weapons fell to Earth
from the Chitauri.
And none of them worked except for one. And
why?
This
Who knows?
Husband and wife, well, the husband, he reverse engineered it and made it start working.
Like accidentally. Like this dude's so smart that he just like, oh, I just boop boop and then it worked.
But yeah, they started robbing banks with Chitauri weapons.
I could see people like, oh, we have this alien super weapon. Let's just start robbing banks.
I mean, I probably would do that
if you had it was like a Bonnie and Clyde type thing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But then
because they didn't kill anybody.
He tried not to.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure blowing up some desks and stuff.
And dude, they got so much money.
They had enough. They finally got enough to be done.
Which
but Shield was involved because
good Lord, and how much that is to
I don't
do
know.
whatever you want
in cash, all of it in cash. Shield got involved, and they had to either get the weapon and terminate the two, or something else. Yeah. So it's not Agent Coulson anymore. I can't think of the name. It's like Hollow, something like that. Starts with an H.
Yeah, he's a bald dude. Who cares?
Yeah, so the agent goes, he finds them. He does some like really cool, just trying to get them out of the room, away from the weapon.
Yeah, he starts playing loud music, and they're like, "What's going on over there?" So like one of them goes out so they're in a hotel room, and he's playing loud music on the room next to them. So the guy goes out to check what's going on, and then he pulls him into the room, handcuffs him, and then like puts a cloth in his mouth so he can't speak. Oh no, I guess before he does that, the guy kicks the speaker, yells to the girl, it's the cops. Which I guess is the cops, but not really because it's S.H.I.E.L.D.
She grabs the alien gun and shoots through the wall. Not once, but twice.
And then he gets the cloth stuff in his mouth, and then he's trying to say he went around, and then the
agent,
they struggle,
sneaks up behind the girl, and then they struggle over the weapon,
and then the gun falls and blows up all the money. It's like, well, okay, well that was pointless.
Yeah. So he sits them down, both of them handcuffed at this point, and he is explaining to them that all of these weapons have fallen, none of them work. Except for this one.
And they're like, I'll show you how to do it. I'll totally show you how I did it. And so this guy's like, I can't remember what the word they use, but it's like, it's pretty ominous. Like they're like, he's
there to terminate them.
Yeah. It's like, it's gonna, so, and then he gets out a knife, and I was like, oh, you're gonna straight up kill these people. But no, he recruits him. He recruits him into S.H.I.E.L.D.
And then it goes back to the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, and the guy who sent him there to do the mission is like, what does he say? He says,
"You should have reported back like 10 hours ago. Like, what are you doing?"
He goes, "I'd like to introduce you to the two newest members of S.H.I.E.L.D."
And yeah, so this guy goes to like, I guess the biometrics or like something like department, and so he's just working. This is this guy who's just robbed places. This is going to work at S.H.I.E.L.D. now, and then this other girl, she's just there because
her husband.
She probably has to be there because she knows about S.H.I.E.L.D. now.
Yeah.
So they probably have to keep an eye on her, and so the guy goes, "Can you make coffee?" And she goes, "Nah, nah." Which kind of sexist, dude. You assume that she knows. You're just gonna have your assistant make coffee.
She's supposed to be the assistant, so I'm pretty sure assistants are supposed to do like menial tasks like that.
Yeah, I messed up.
I'm not an assistant, but that was item 47.
Okay,
so, sorry.
Back to Thor: The Dark World.
I apologize.
So like Loki's judgment, he goes down to prison, and then does Odin have his monologue before or after this? About our villains.
Right at the very beginning is the monologue about
the Dark Elves. Which, I'm going to be totally honest, throughout this movie, they're kind of forgettable to me.
I agree.
Like, they're not the strongest villain to me. Like, which is, maybe it's unfair because a little bit later down the line, we're going to have some very cool villains.
Some very powerful villains.
So I understand, like, some of these guys get thrown to the wayside a little bit. But their powers are cool. They look cool.
Yeah.
But it's just like their motivation and like their dialogue is a little weak.
In the very beginning, we get to see them use dark magic.
So this is a war way back.
This is before Odin. This is Odin's father is fighting.
Bor.
O-R.
And he's like the only guy in this lineage that doesn't have his eye cut out.
Yeah.
True. And so basically Malekith is using the ether, which is just something, I don't know, it was like a power that he found in the universe that was like had dark energy. And he was going to use it during the convergence, which basically it's like for us when the stars align, like during an eclipse or something like that. But this is all 9 realms converging like into one line. So there's a portal to all of the 9 realms. And he was going to use the ether to just wreak havoc and turn everything into darkness.
Yeah, he was trying to black out the entire universe.
Which I don't know. Okay, I don't know
what
why.
that does
I
for
don't know.
them.
I don't know why, but I guess evil people.
Maybe they can see better in the dark because they're dark elves. I'm not sure.
But Bor is like, nah, I don't. You're not gonna do that. So the Asgardians show up, and they struggle for a bit, but then they eventually just start laying waste to the dark elves. And so, in a totally not cool move, Malekith, in a desperate attempt to like get away, he just like drops his ships to destroy the Asgard army.
Asgard gets a hold of the ether.
Yes.
So they take it away from the dark elves. Therefore, dark elves completely powerless.
Yeah.
Because that was their main weapon they had been using the entire war.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a desperate attempt, Malekith gets in his ship and then destroys all the other ships, so that he might lay waste to maybe most of the army of the Asgardians.
Which doesn't really work.
Yeah, no, not really.
So now he's just kind of a jerk for like killing his own army and trying.
But the Asgardians hide the Aether inside of a planet or inside of a realm.
Midgard.
I don't know if it's in Midgard because like later in the movie they say that they couldn't find her on Earth, so she went to somewhere else.
I don't know because that's where she ends up finding it.
Right. Yeah, we'll get there.
So yeah, time of Odin's father. They buried the ether, which I don't know. At least how I got it, they just buried it in Earth somewhere where people couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why people keep choosing Earth to do things.
Maybe because it's in the middle, because it's called Midgard. I don't know.
Maybe because like nobody cares about this dirt planet, so it's like why would it be there?
Yeah.
So then we cut to present day. Yeah, and then Loki and Odin talk about Loki's war crimes on Earth. And so he goes down to prison, like we said, and then so where's Thor during all of this? He's just in the different realms, like undoing Loki's chaos, basically. And he joins Lady Sif, and like
Sif, I think,
and the mace dude, the battle axe dude, the fencing guy. I don't know any of their names.
All of the guys, the four of them,
his friends from the first movie, and
they're fighting on this big planet or on this realm, in this realm,
and they're like they're holding their own, I guess. And then Thor shows up and really turns the tide of the battle.
Well, Sif goes, "Oh, we had this taken care of." He goes, "I could tell. It's all on fire."
It's all on fire. And then this big rock monster shows up. And Thor's like, "I accept your surrender." And then, like they all start laughing, and he's like, and then he just one shots it with Mjolnir and like kills this big rock monster.
Yep. And then everybody does surrender.
Mm-hmm. And then so like we go back to Asgard, and I think it always looks cool, like the bright shining Asgard.
This time we get to see like sort of the underbelly where they train their warriors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really interesting.
And then Thor and Odin have this talk because Thor is still like kind of thinking about like Jane and stuff and they still have these talks. They're like about like what it means to be a leader and talks about the realms and about love and everything. And Odin's position, I guess I understand, is because like Jane is going to die because she's a human.
100 years.
Because she's human. So he was like, you probably should be with, one of the Asgardians who is going to be here for a long time. But he wants the relationship with Jane, and he knows he can't have it right now. So speaking of Jane, we cut to her back on Earth, and she's bad at dates. Like super
really
bad at dates.
Bad.
She writes hi on a napkin. And
he wrote hi because she had been staring at the menu.
Oh, that was
for
him.
40 minutes.
Oh.
There's only 3 options.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah. Not said a single word to her date, staring at the menu.
And then Darcy shows up and like just destroys the date. And then so she leaves because like her stuff, Jane's like equipment is getting like a weird reading.
Yeah.
And then leaves the guy, and he's just like, you know what, that sucks, man.
I'll just sit here and say sea bass by myself. That's fine.
And then we find out that like Dr. Selvig is kind of nuts.
He has gone insane since we saw him last in Avengers.
Yes. How do we know this? Because he was running around naked at Stonehenge, like with these poles, like trying to get a reading.
Metal poles.
And which I totally forgot about that, but it makes sense. Like there'd be a side effect of having a god manipulating your mind.
Well, if this is what happened to Eric Selvig, I wonder what happened to Hawkeye. You know, I wonder if there are still lingering effects for Hawkeye.
Or I don't know if it's like his mind was just like stronger, so he was able to like push it away.
I don't know.
I don't doubt.
Maybe he got hit harder in the
Sure,
head.
he got bonked on the head pretty good by Nat.
I don't know.
And then so like they go to the place that has the strange readings, and it's just this random warehouse. And then they find these random kids that are just playing in the warehouse.
Well, yeah, they think that they're the cops because they found something really cool and they'd been playing with it.
And this kid just lifts up a car, and it's like
a cement semi-truck.
Yeah.
Insanely heavy.
And it's like, wait a minute, gravity ain't quite right here. And then they throw like shoes and stuff, and it's almost like a portal, and it's like going to different dimensions. And then sometimes it comes back and sometimes it doesn't. And then they throw the car keys.
We gotta talk about Ian.
Oh yeah, the assistant, Darcy's assistant, who doesn't get paid.
Well, Darcy doesn't get paid either. The assistant's assistant, because she had a lot of stuff to do, I guess.
And so they're driving this car that they drive there, this van, like their equipment van. He gets super excited about this portal, so he throws the keys into the portal.
They didn't come back.
And they didn't come back. And she's like, was that the keys of the car? And it reminds me of that 70s show episode where like they're at the top of the water tower, and they're like, I can't remember like how they got to where it was, but like Kelso, he gets their keys and he throws it in the woods. He's like, oh crap, I just threw my keys into the woods. So then she starts exploring, and she gets like sucked into this room.
Yeah, so this is why I'm saying that it's not on Earth. Because
I see
she
what you
gets
mean.
sucked into a portal.
And we don't know where this portal is.
We don't know where the portal is.
That's true.
So I was thinking that it's not on Earth.
Just somewhere.
It's just somewhere in the universe.
So she finds the ether, and she's like looking at it, and then it goes like full symbiote.
It attacks her. It attacks this poor lady.
And it goes into her.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Looking for a host, I guess. I don't.
And then she passed out.
True.
And she woke up 8 hours? 5 hours?
Mm-hmm.
It was 5 or 8 hours later. And Darcy had called the cops.
And because she's like, I didn't know where you were. And then it starts raining. Or like it already was raining.
Except for around her.
So like we see that like the ether in Jane is like, it like distorts gravity. It distorts like reality. It distorts. So I'm like, I don't know. Is this the reality stone? I think it's the reality stone.
Yes. I believe it is, because it's the redstone that Scarlet Witch gets her powers from. Right? Because I think the reality stone is what caused Scarlet Witch and...
I thought it was the Tesseract they experimented them on. I could be wrong, but I thought it was Hydra that experimented on the Maximoff twins.
Right.
With the Tesseract.
Ooh. You know, you might be right. Because I thought that... Captain Marvel.
Wait, who are the Maximoff twins? Hey,
sorry. Whoops. Just trying to think of things. Yeah. So
it could be. I
thought it was Thor who was doing it, because Darcy says, "Is this you?"
It very could
and
be.
And he turns off the rain around.
Yeah, they look over and hey, Thor's here. And she walks up to him, she slaps him, and he's like, sorry, I just need to make sure you were real. There are other ways he could have made sure he was real.
And then she smacked him again and said that that's for the 2 years.
Yeah, because he left.
Yeah.
And he was like, I had to go take care of all the 9 realms. And she's like, as far as excuses go, I guess that's pretty good. But they talk. They, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're back together, but, like, they're talking again. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of this relationship. Because, like,
I think it's
awkward. I think it's clunky.
Yeah. I think it's just weird because she's human and she has all human traits and he is a god.
Yeah.
And he has all of this power and all this stuff that she will never understand.
Mm-hmm.
But then the cops try to arrest her. And
yeah.
They get blasted away by
this red grenade that, like, explodes.
Yeah.
And it's like the ether is, like, protecting her, protecting itself, one or the other.
Yeah.
Thor
sees this, freaks out,
leaves,
grabs her, and leaves to Asgard.
Which probably shouldn't have did that.
Yep.
But immediately as the ether goes into her, it cuts to Malekith waking up. Because I guess it makes sense that if he's obsessed with the ether, he would probably have, like, beacons or signals, like, looking for the power of the ether. And he was just asleep this whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know if maybe it was he set a time to sleep, hoping that Bor would no longer be alive when he woke up. Or maybe, I don't know. I thought maybe he, like, set a timer and it just decided to go off at this moment. Or, like you're saying, it could be that he had sensors that woke him up once it was found.
Who knows? Weird elf tech.
Alien elves.
Yeah, dude, we're fully into the weird. Like, we're getting into the weird stuff of the MCU. We have dark elves now.
Yeah. We got rock monsters and dark elves.
Heck yeah. And it's only going to get weirder.
True.
So he starts, like, going to where the signal, where, like, they think the signal is.
Which is now on Asgard.
Yes. And then, so Jane and Thor are on Asgard now, and Odin's not too pleased about the, what?
This is where we see him slice open one of his other elves and shove a dark stone into him.
To, like, power him up.
Yeah.
And admittedly, this elf gets a pretty cool looking suit, but he can, like, fight. But, like, other than that, he's not that interesting.
He's like Hulk, but with bones
he's a dark
sticking
elf.
out of him.
He's Dark Elf Hulk.
Yes. Really cool though.
He looks cool.
He gets taken to jail, down into the prison, because that's where we get back. Thor is taken.
Well, hold on.
No. Thor's taken Jane to Asgard.
Thor first tells, like, Jane about the convergence.
Oh, yep.
He gives her that little explanation. Like we said, it's basically just, like, all 9 realms aligning, which it's very pretty and it's a very cool scene, but it's also ripe for danger. Like, bad things can happen. And also Heimdall can't see her, which is interesting because this boy can see everything in the entire 9 realms. But he can't see her. Why? Probably because of the ether, I guess.
Well, he couldn't see her when she went to the ether. She can see. I think he can see her now. I believe it was just while she was there, he couldn't see her, which is probably some elf magic. Because he can't see the elves.
Right. And then he takes her to Asgard, and they're, like, working on her to, like, and it's pretty cool to, like, so she's, like, looking at what they're doing to her and, like, all this stuff, and she's like, oh, this is a scientific thing. So it's kind of like the fun little nod to, like, they use magic. It's magic is science that we haven't figured out yet. And Odin is none too pleased that a human is here, and she's not supposed to be here. And he wants to get rid of her. She's like, they have their own doctors, because he thinks, like, she's just kind of, like, sick, like cancer or something, I guess.
Yeah.
But then the guards go to like grab her, and then everybody gets blasted back again, and then Odin's like, "Oh, that's
not
this.
human sick. That's not human sick."
And he gets like super concerned because the last time he heard of that was with the Dark Elves, and he's like, "Oh, we need to."
Yeah, and Thor said, "That was just a story Mother told us when we were children. That can't be real, right?" But it turns out
like all the stories,
a lot of children's stories are real.
And then, so yeah, the elf gets powered up, and he sneaks in with a bunch of other
Inmates,
bad guys that they put in the Asgard prison. And Heimdall, like he's looking at this dude. He's like, that guy's a little weird. What's up with him? But he can't he doesn't know that it's an elf.
Anything, yeah.
He
sees that that guy is pretty big to just give himself up.
So he's automatically sussing him, and then they put him in the prison.
Electrical fence prison.
They put him in this box, and then it's like a yellow plane of, it looks like a yellow pane of glass, but it's like electrical, and it'll shock you if you try to get out. Yeah, and Loki's down there too to hang out with all the prisoners. But he has books and stuff though, which is he can read.
Yeah.
And this elf powers up. I don't know when this happens really, but Frigga goes down and talks with Loki.
Yes. She's explaining to him
why you're down here.
Yeah.
You know why you're down here.
And she calls Odin his father, and he goes, "He is not my father."
And he's, "Am I not your mother?" And he goes, "No." And I'm like, Loki, I don't know. I hate Loki. They took care of you, dude.
He would have been dead on an ice rock if it wasn't for Odin.
And still, all he desires right now is this power and the throne, and it's he is so focused on that he doesn't even care about one of the only people that is his mother. Okay, she didn't give birth to him, but she is his mother. Yeah. She took care of him. And he's just totally disrespect. And I'm like, dude, he's the emo teen that Mom, oh, you hate me. Oh, it sucks. And it's like, dude, when you grow up, you just want to hit that kid in the face. She's like, you're so perceptive of everybody but yourself. And that just leaves him there just like, yeah. And so she leaves. And I didn't even notice that. Unfortunately, it's going to be something happens. That'll be the last time that Loki sees Frigga.
Yeah. Well, I think once Jane Foster gets to Asgard, she meets Frigga.
Right.
And Odin. And I mean, that's really cool. First of all, you get to meet gods.
Well, I mean, that's also an interesting thing. I can't remember where he says it, but Odin says we are not gods.
Yes.
We live and we die. But then Loki's like, give or take 5,000 years. So I guess it's all about perspective. To us, they are gods probably. Because they have powers and they live really long. More lifetimes than we could ever do.
Right. So I mean, for them, it could just be that the race of Asgardians.
Right.
The alien race of Asgard.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, to us, they're gods, but to them, that's just how they live.
Yeah.
So yeah, the elf sneaks in, he powers up, and he just starts a prison riot, basically.
Well, he grabs one prisoner, shoves his face into the thing, and then punches it at the same time, and he breaks out. And
then he just starts breaking prisoners out. And I like how Loki's just he's throwing this cup into the air, and he's just catching it, like you would do if you're practicing, you're laying on your back and you're throwing up a basketball. And Loki's just like, hey, what's going on over there?
He hears all this yelling and stuff.
And then the big elf gets out, and he just straight up starts punching these beams of glass, and he just destroys them. And I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty strong. And so prisoners start breaking out, Asgard
The Asgardian
army starts coming down,
yeah.
and they can't do nothing against this guy. He just starts sucking the life force out of them, and
oh yeah, he grabs them by like the throat, and
like,
then their bodies just fall to pieces.
and they're like dark and like shriveled up, and it's like, ew.
Yeah.
And this giant, I'm just gonna call him Hulk Elf,
Maybe like an ogre.
Ogre Elf.
Yeah.
He breaks everybody out except for Loki.
He looks at Loki, and then turns back into.
And Loki, he says, up the stairs and on the left.
Take the left staircase.
And why would you say that?
I don't know.
Like I don't know what.
Maybe
I don't know
because Loki always is thinking ahead. So maybe he's like, well, if I do this for him, perhaps he'll come back and let me out.
I don't know.
But
so I don't know where Loki, because I don't know the layout of Asgard.
Right.
So I don't know where Loki was like sending this guy.
I think he was just getting him out.
Probably.
Which is what was the biggest mistake of Loki's life.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
And then then it cuts to Heimdall, and he can hear this like this humming,
vibration.
and then he's like, "Hey, what's that?" and then he looks up and he sees this ship that's like invisible flying into Asgard.
I don't know if he sees it as much as he just hears it.
Right. And then he gets out, like he runs.
2 daggers.
He is moving up this bridge on the Bifrost, and he jumps on this thing, and just with 2 daggers, he takes down this ship. But then he looks up, and there's a bigger ship. Like there's a much bigger ship.
And then it releases like 40 or 50 more of that size ship.
And he just couldn't see him. He couldn't warn Asgard. And then he tries to like put up a shield around the main castle, but it gets destroyed by the big ogre monster. Because he just punches it.
See, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand how he's not taking damage when he punches these things that should kill people when they touch him.
Maybe he is. It's just he's not making any noises that like would convey that it is. I mean, it probably does hurt.
He is completely full of power at this point.
So yeah, Malekith shows up, and he's
going after Jane because he wants the ether out of her.
And Frigga says, "Do as I tell you," and then she's. I like how cool she's like, "Do as I say, no questions." And then Malekith shows up, and I think I'm pretty sure she could have beat Malekith. Like she could have, as they were fighting, like she slices him, and then she's about ready to slice his throat.
Yeah.
I think, dude, she would. That's it. That's it. But then, big bad guard shows up and like grabs her throat, and
he stabs her. He stabs her through.
Well, and then they go to Jane, and then she disappears because she's a witch.
Yeah.
She does a little magic stuff, and she's like, "I will never tell you where she is," because she's like hiding somewhere in this room. And Malekith goes, "Yeah, I believe you," and then they stab her with an elf sword.
And at this exact moment, Thor is walking.
He sees this, and he zaps Malekith in the face.
In the face with lightning. I couldn't imagine how painful that is. Then
when the ogre dude grabs Malekith, he throws Mjolnir, and he knocks him off the like balcony. And he was going after him until they hopped in the ship.
Yeah.
And then Odin walks in, and then he's hugging her as she takes her dying breath, and I'm like, bro,
why you do that?
this is sad, man. But yeah, Loki's fault. Hey, Loki's fault.
Actually, because that guy would have been stuck down there fighting Thor.
Yeah, Thor eventually showed up with his buddies. So I don't know. To be totally fair, I don't know if Loki, when he sent that guy to the left, he probably didn't know that his mother was there.
Well, I don't think his mother was there. I think that he just made it so that guy wouldn't be stuck down in the basement. Which, if he was down there for long enough, Malekith would have been killed and everything would have been fine.
Yeah. So I guess Loki inadvertently got his mother killed.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Earth, and we see Dr. Selvig giving like this, in which tiny little complaint about the MCU. It took like there was this nice scene of the mother and her funeral, and the very cool Viking burial, I guess. Burial, it's not really a burial, but like
well, they set him out to sea, and then they light the boat on fire
to like send him off to
queen, because she was the queen. Well, also that was probably all the people that died.
Probably.
So
they sent him off with the queen.
Yeah.
To like they sent him off in a blaze of glory to like Valhalla, and a really cool thing because Asgard eventually just kind of ends. It's kind of like a flat, like it's a flat Earth, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it ends on this like waterfall that like goes off, and her boat falls, but like Odin does the thing with his staff, and her I guess like dust
her
of
essence,
her
I don't know,
flies off into space. I'm like, oh, that's very pretty. But then then it cuts to the Dr. Selvig, this goofy scene, and I'm like,
does it cut to Dr. Selvig, or does it go down to Loki finding out about his mother's death?
Probably that.
So Loki finds out.
A guard just shows up and just nods his head, and then Loki knows what that means.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got no one to blame but yourself.
And he turns around, the guard leaves, and Loki destroys everything with one yell.
Yeah. And so we have this really like deep, somber moment that I wish we could have just lingered in a little bit longer. Because like a thing I noticed with the MCU is they have these like deep emotional scenes sometimes, and they're like, nah, we gotta cut it off with a joke. And that's what they do here. Is like it seems a little quick, and then they cut to Dr. Selvig, and he's like
completely naked.
He's in the mental hospital.
That's right.
And he's doing the rambling of like the 9 realms are going to converge, and then just cuts the stand. He's like, can I get my shoe back? Because he's like having these shoes, and he's like demonstrating something weird, which all of he's saying is completely true, and it's gonna happen.
Yes,
but
it's so out there.
Yeah,
that
because it hasn't happened.
It can't be possible.
With it hasn't happened
5,000 years
in a long time.
A long time. Yeah.
Then like with this talk with Thor and Heimdall, like Heimdall says, he's like, it happened. The last convergence happened many years before on my watch.
How old is Heimdall? And who was before him?
Yeah. And then Thor and Heimdall have this like little talk. They're very somber. It hit the kingdom hard that Frigg is dead, and then Heimdall's like, I can't see the enemy, so what good am I, basically?
Yeah.
And he's like, I can think of a way that you can help. So they hatch this plan to... and then it cuts... And then it goes to Odin and Thor talking about how they should handle this conflict, because Asgard is basically low-key screwed, because they have no defenses. Their invisible ships are, like, surrounding Asgard. There's, like, slowly getting picked off.
Right.
So... I guess upon reflection, this plan makes a little bit more sense. When I was watching it at first, I thought this plan was kind of stupid. What Thor wants to do is take Jane to the Dark World, to the Elves' place.
So that they can fight there.
Yeah. And when the ether is exposed, Thor would destroy it. I thought it was kind of stupid, because they're bringing the thing that powers them up to them. But
he's not, because there's nobody on the Dark World.
Yeah. And I think it makes more sense thinking about it, because he wanted to get the danger away from Asgard.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he did it. And
yeah,
this is tough, because Odin has like a fair plan too. He was like, we will stay here and we will defend Asgard to the last Asgardian breath is drawn. And I'm like, both plans are noble, but I think I'm going to go with Thor.
I almost wonder if this is Ragnarok. If Odin believes this is Ragnarok,
which
is the end of Asgard.
Yeah, it's possible. But
we find out it's probably not.
Probably not. That comes later.
Yeah.
Then there's no way to get off of Asgard, because trying to get out of Asgard is a betrayal of Odin's wishes, which
would be
treason.
Treason in the highest degree.
But there's one person that knows the secret passageway off of, which is basically just going off the side of this river. Is kind of what they did.
Through a mountain.
There's only one person that knows this passageway, and of course, who else would it be but Loki? But
So Thor comes up with an idea to break his brother out of prison
with the help of Lady Sith and all the bros.
Yeah.
And Heimdall's help.
Yes, because Heimdall pulled Odin away from the castle just to tell him, "I'm sorry, I betrayed you."
Yeah, he's like, "Why did you call me here in such urgent business?" And he's like, "Treason, my lord." And he's like, "Whose?" Mine. And he takes out the sword and he gives it to him. And I was like, "Yo."
And then they find out that Loki has escaped.
Yeah. And he's like, "I want everybody looking for them right now. Thor cannot leave." And which I understand why, because he doesn't want his sons going to this place where, one, they could get themselves killed, and two, that they could destroy the 9 realms.
Yeah. So Thor takes himself, Jane, and Loki all to the Dark World.
Yes. And
the Dark Elves follow.
Yes. And the banter is pretty good between Loki and Thor on the ride out of Asgard. He's like, I think you missed a beam back there, because Thor doesn't know how to fly a ship.
Yeah, so the ship they take broke all of the columns coming into the place.
And then he decapitated Bor's. He's like, "Congratulations, you decapitated your grandfather." And he's like, and so Loki's just commentating like all the stupid things that Thor, and then Thor's like, "I really appreciate the commentary, Loki." It's not distracting at all. And then he pushes Loki out of the ship and he falls them down to distract like the Asgardian like ships.
Yeah.
And then they get out of here.
Yep.
And they go to the Dark World.
Which it's a really cool, because it's like the normal Bifrost, but it's only in like a tunnel. So when they go through the tunnel, they explode out into this other world.
Yeah. And so they're up on like this hill. Oh, and we kind of like missed out on that, but I guess Dr. Selvig is sane again. Like he's fine now.
Oh, so he has all these meds.
Yeah.
And he goes, "It's really refreshing to know the world's crazier than you are." And then he throws all of them away. And
I guess he's fine now.
He's back to normal.
I mean, he still didn't put pants on, but
he thinks better without pants, apparently. Which
so
could
then,
have been how he was before. We just don't know.
True, could have been. So then they're in the Loki, Jane, and Thor are in the Dark World, and they're up on like this kind of hill thing. In the Dark World, it kind of looks pretty sick.
Yes. It's all this ash and
it's like a dune place basically, and it's like the atmosphere is like an ash. And
so it's like a instead of sand, it's like black sand.
It looks really cool. Like the aftermath of like if a nuke went off.
Yeah.
And so they're up on this hill and they see Malekith and like the big strong elf and like a couple of other guards waiting down there. And it's always fun to like rewatch the old movie. I'll say this over and over again, but like Loki cuts Thor's hand off.
He's always thinking.
And then he kicks he doesn't do that yet, I guess. He stabs Thor and he kicks him down the hill. And then Thor goes to reach for Mjolnir, and then Loki cuts his hand off. And dude, I was so pissed in this moment. I was like, dude,
we trusted you.
I effing hate Loki. And it's this tough. Well, like, just because before they got there, they were like, Thor's like, I really wish I could trust you, brother. And then they start like fighting, and he's like, that's not what Mother would want us to do. And that's when I think the MCU is best, is when it boils it down to like simple things. This is like a brother and a brother having an argument about trusting each other and stuff. Yeah, when the MCU does simple things like that, it really works.
Yeah, I agree. But so all of this was Loki threw Jane at the Dark Elf and was like, I give you an offering. Just allow me to have some power when you're done.
Just let me watch Asgard
give
burn.
Give me a good seat for watching Asgard burn. And at this moment, Malekith, right? Malekith?
Yeah, he grabs her.
Grabs Jane, pulls her up, and starts extracting the aether.
And it looks weird coming out of her. Like, it looks painful.
Yeah, it really does. Because it's like this liquid coming straight out of her body.
Yeah. And she had, like, red eyes up until this point. Like, her eyes were, like, tweaking.
Yes, there's some weird stuff going on.
I don't know. It's because they were, like, on the dark world and the ether just started, like, acting up.
Yeah. Well, I think she had been getting crazier and crazier.
Oh, yeah, because she was going to die. Because human bodies obviously aren't meant for that kind of power. And so, like, as the ether is vulnerable, Thor goes, Loki, now. And then, so he reverses the magic. He gets his hand back. He has his Mjolnir. And Loki, so I guess, like, Jane falls to the ground, and Loki, like, covers her. Like, he gets on top of her to, like, so she's not hurt. And then Thor hits the ether with, like, a thunderbolt of lightning. Thunderbolt of lightning? All right.
A lightning bolt from Mjolnir.
Yeah. And it, like, explodes, I guess.
Explodes, but into shards.
Yeah. And we were wondering how it turned into a stone. And here you go.
Sort of. Because then it goes back to a liquid, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess it's just however it wants to be. And I bet we'll talk about it later.
So then, I don't know what happens.
So at this moment, Malekith grabs all of the ether shards and pulls him back to the liquid. And then puts it inside of his body. So he becomes like a super dark elf.
Yeah, he's strong now. Like, I think Thor and Loki could have taken Malekith easily before this, but nah, he's supercharged now.
And also the bodyguard starts.
Thor and the big elf Hulk thing, they have a fight, and
Thor's getting beat.
He gets thrown around. He gets punched up pretty good. Like, he's getting pounded into the ground. He's bleeding, like, pretty bad. And
Loki stabs it through the chest with one of its own blades.
And, like, it just grabs Loki and pulls him into the blade, stabbing Loki as well. But then, so Loki falls to the ground, and he has a pretty cool line. He's like, "I'll see you in hell, monster." And he had attached one of the, I guess, black hole grenades.
I think they're black hole grenades because they suck everything into it, and then it disappears.
It looks extremely painful when they used it earlier on Asgardians. But he attached it to the Hulk elf, and he's, like, scrambling to grab this thing. But no, it sucks him in, and he just goes away. And so Loki dies in Thor's arms.
Yeah.
And then
in this moment, Thor is
uber pissed,
so upset.
So then he flies. Well, I think
Malekith gets back in the ship and takes off.
Yeah.
Disappears. Can't find him because the magic of elves.
And then we see. It's weird. Like, we see a guard. Like, it's a little bit later, but we see an Asgardian guard on the Dark World. And, like, he's shimmering, like, glimmering with, like, this stuff. And it's like, hey, who dat?
Yeah.
And
you kind of know that it's not who we think it is.
Yeah. And this guard goes back to Odin, and he basically says that Loki's dead.
Just to see how Odin reacts.
Yeah.
This is all Loki's thinking of, just to see how Odin reacts.
That's super weird, super toxic, super, like...
Also, dude just lost his wife, and now you're taking his son.
He wanted to, like, get the range of how sad he would be. I'm like, that's really weird. Like, Loki's messed up in the head. So then the elves show up to Greenwich. I don't know how they said it.
It's Greenwich, but it's spelled with a W in the middle.
London.
Greenwich, England.
They drive on the wrong side. they're weird.
We are the only people who drive on the other side of the road.
Based. So they show up there, and like you said, they like converge in the middle of the square. I don't know why.
Yeah, there's two paths of concrete going, and they just have to meet in the middle.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously it's for camera work, and stuff like that, but it fit too well to not say something about it.
So then the convergence is happening, and I can't remember.
Sylvan has these ideas of how to stop it almost, just so that it would skip Earth.
And then why is it in Greenwich? Because that's where the perfect spot it's going to happen. So Malekith wants to be there to unleash the ether.
Yeah.
But then so they're in this area of like weird like magic stuff. So Dr. Selvig and Jane want to create these like pole things so they can create
control
the portal things
happen.
Which is pretty sick. Science control.
Really cool.
Science making portal things. Pretty cool. And then I forgot that this is a really fun fight. Like between Thor and Malekith. Like they're
flying through dimensions.
They go to they go back to the Dark World. They go to Jotunheim,
which is the ice planet from the first movie.
And as they get teleported back, there's this giant blue monster.
It's the same thing that attacked them last time.
It's
but
like
this
a
one's
baby.
a lot smaller, so we're thinking it's a baby.
And then it's just in London somewhere. It's never talked about again.
We don't know where it's at.
And then another really funny thing is Thor at some point Mjolnir is
he
on
throws Mjolnir.
It's on Earth. And then he gets teleported to the Dark World. So Mjolnir shoots up in his face and then he gets teleported back to Earth. So Mjolnir shoots down and then it flies away. And Darcy's like, Mew Mew.
Mew Mew.
Because sometimes it's hard to say Mjolnir.
You can't say Mjolnir. But we assume she says Mew Mew because that's
and
what
I
the
forgot about
say.
when Thor goes to Jane's hideout and he puts Mjolnir on the coat rack. Dude, coat rack worthy, I guess.
Yeah, that you explained that to me, but it doesn't make sense really.
So inanimate objects,
some kind of heavy.
Right.
It's made of metal.
Sure. No, I imagine it is.
So that's just a really sturdy coat rack.
So at least in the comic books, because later we'll see another machine lift it. So I think what it is inanimate objects can probably lift it or hold it. Like
in cars. When he has it in a car, it's able to move.
And the ground, he sets it on Earth all the time.
Yeah.
But if you are a living being like we are, you have to be worthy, and whatever worthy means, I guess. I don't know. Just a good man, I guess. But yeah, it's a coat rack worthy. Back to the fight. It's really cool stuff. They're just throwing each other, beating the crap out of each other through dimensions, and then so Jane and
Malekith gets away from Thor at a certain point because he starts using the ether to corrupt the other worlds.
Right. And so through science, which is pretty cool, they've engineered these poles to send
they create
objects
the portals
to the Dark World.
Well, they're creating the portals.
Yeah.
So it's not just to the Dark World. I think it's spread.
The ones that they give to Thor, he throws to Malekith. Yes. So this is pretty sick. They give we could stop it. We could send him back to the Dark World, but we can't get close. There's God right there. And so he's like, I'll do it. And so he takes these poles of science, I guess, and he just starts javelin throwing these things at Malekith, and hits
him in the arm,
and his arm just onto the Dark World, it separates from his body.
That's a really cool scene because you get to see just the arm just flop onto the sand of the Dark World.
And he's like, you can't stop this. You can't stop me. It's over. It's done. He's like, maybe I can't stop it, but I can send you somewhere else. So he just, with the pole and Mjolnir.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool.
As he's like jumping in the air, he grabs Mjolnir and the pole and he smacks this thing into Malekith, and it sends him and the ether back to the Dark World. Big explosion, knocks Thor to the ground, unconscious, and unfortunately the ship's still there, and it's like,
yeah, it's about to fall onto.
It's about to fall into Thor and Jane. And Thor, he's knocked out at the moment. He can't do anything. But good old Dr. Selvig,
he made one last portal.
And it sends the whole ship back to the Dark World. And Malekith's like laying on the ground there. And he just looks up, and this big old ship just lands on him. Malekith dead? Question mark.
Yes,
I guess,
because we see later that they have the ether in a shell almost.
I guess he's dead until the MCU says he's not.
Correct. I mean, that's how everybody is, though.
Yeah.
So.
Loki.
Yeah.
And
so after that, we go back to. I'm not going to say Valhalla, but it's
Asgard.
Asgard.
Yes.
Thank you. So we go back to Asgard, right? And
yes.
This is when we get our video clip for this movie. Is that right?
I think so.
All right. So we got a video clip of when Thor finally gets back to Asgard to talk to his father for y'all.
You once said there would never be a wiser king than me. You were wrong. The alignment has brought all the realms together. Every one of them saw you offer your life to save them. What can Asgard offer its new king in return?
My life. Father, I cannot be king of Asgard. I will protect Asgard and all the realms with my last and every breath, but I cannot do so from that chair. Loki, for all his grave imbalance, understood rule as I know I never will. The brutality, the sacrifice, it changes you. I'd rather be a good man than a great king.
Is this my son I hear, or the woman he loves?
When you speak to, I never hear Mother's voice. This is not for Jane, Father. She does not know what I came here to say. Now forbid me to see her or say she can rule at my side. It changes nothing.
One son who wanted the throne too much, another who will not take it. Is this my legacy?
Loki died with honor. I shall try to live the same. Is that not legacy enough?
It belongs to you, if you are worthy of it.
I shall try to be.
I cannot give you my blessing, nor can I wish you good fortune.
I know.
If I were proud of the man my son had become, even that I could not say. It would speak only from my heart. Go, my son.
This is such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, too bad it's not Odin.
We find out that it's actually just Loki.
Yeah.
Saying all of this to Thor to get him out of Asgard.
Basically. Because when Thor leaves, it like pans around the staff that he's holding and he like turns into Loki. And so, Loki's on the throne.
It's so good. Like, that is what Odin would say.
Oh, yeah.
I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. And so it leads to a fairly good question. It's like, well, where's Odin?
Odin?
We'll find out in the next movie. And so then I think it's the after credit scene.
It's the after credit scene for this movie.
Where Lady Sith and Battle Axe guy, I don't know.
You know, a couple of the main hero guys.
They go to
the Collector.
To give him the ether. And they're
because they already have
the
Tesseract
yeah.
on Asgard.
So they don't want 2 Infinity Stones on Asgard, which is like, okay, fair enough.
The Collector goes, yeah, that makes sense. Probably shouldn't have all of them together.
I think it's the first time we hear the words Infinity Stone, which, hey, what's an Infinity Stone?
Super crazy.
But like you said,
as soon as Lady Sif leaves and the Battle Axe guy, he goes, 1 down, 5 to go.
Oh, yeah?
5
Wait, more?
What are you talking about?
5 more? So, yeah. This, I don't know. Because this... Overall, I mean, that's kind of it. That's the movie.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It's a tough deal because I remember thinking back when I first watched this that I thought this was kind of a mid sequel. It was just kind of okay. I think it's better than what I thought it was initially. Well, at first I thought it was maybe like a 5 or like out of 10 or like maybe 5.5. But I think now it's like a 6 or a 7. Like it's. Maybe closer to a 6.5.
I'm sure when you first watched it, you were expecting more action and
probably
like not like this dark underplot storyline.
Right. And then I don't like Loki at all. So
understandable. I mean, I think a lot of people don't like him.
But one thing that there some very good things that this movie does though. Like straight off the bat, I think Thor is leagues different than he was in the first movie.
Yes.
Because when Odin's talking about the throne, Thor in the first movie would have been like, all right, sweet. I want to rule. Let's go.
I'm ready. Give it to me now.
And he's like, in this, he's like, I don't want to rule. I want to do things outside of the throne. And also, he wouldn't have cared about Jane as deeply than the guy we saw in the first movie. So, yeah, Thor's,
there's some major character development.
He's changed a lot. Loki, he's still the same. To see
now he's lost something.
Right. He lost
his mother, his confidant.
And that's another thing that I do give respect. Like this movie has some cojones. Killed the mom. Like
she's gone. She's just gone forever.
It's not the last time we'll see her, but
right. But the last time alive. Like in the timeline.
Yeah. But for now, she's gone.
Yeah.
And it sucks because like now we're having some legit consequences in these movies. And so like and then the villain but on the flip side, the villains are kind of forgettable. Like
yeah.
I think the
dark
they
elf
look cool and they're pretty
really
strong.
cool,
but their motivation, what they want to do, turning the universe into darkness, like we'll see later in other villains, like their plan and why they want to do it is very well thought out, and like why they want to do something, and they're giving super like strong development.
Right.
These villains, not so much.
Yeah, this is more of it's a grudge match because he has a grudge against the Asgardians for taking the stone or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think I would give it probably a 7.5 at most.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there are some things in this movie that really move along the story.
Right.
But also, it doesn't do a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
At the exact same time.
So it's not bad like a lot of people think it is. Like there are movies in the MCU that sometimes I agree with that it's bad, and sometimes like I'm like, you know what? Like this one, it's fine. It's just, some people are just mean with movies.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And it's also, and like you say, it's one of those movies where it's like it doesn't do a extreme amount in this movie, but the next Thor movie, it sets up a lot of cool stuff, which is going to be fun.
Yes.
Which it's going to be one of the best movies
to date.
Oh yeah, 100% in the MCU.
Alrighty. Well, that's going to wrap up our podcast for y'all. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know at our email, which is silverscreenpod@gmail.com. And thank you for listening.